A woman was assaulted and killed in an upscale villa in San Diego, but her body lay in an eerie position, facing out the window the entire time. At first, the agents couldn't figure out why the killer had arranged her this way. That was until the day they spotted birds perched on a telephone pole. Male birds use their vibrant plumage to attract females. That desperate bid for attention, it suddenly made everything click for the agents. The killer's motive all along was to make the corpse keep staring at him. The victim's eyelids had been pried open with glue. Her gruesome state a dead ringer for Tommy from the rock opera of the same name. That's how the killer earned his nickname, the Tommy Killer. Over the past 20-odd days, he'd committed 6 murders in a row. Even more unsettling, starting with the 4th victim, the Tommy Killer began leaving messages on mirrors at the crime scenes. The words were excerpts from a 17th century ballad, a dialogue between Death and a woman. The woman begged Death for mercy, but Death ordered her to strip off her fancy gown and renounce all her wealth and vanity for good. The case was quickly handed over to the Behavioral Analysis Unit. Gideon studied the victims' personal photos and found they all came from wealthy families. What's more, every murder happened in broad daylight. Pulling this off was incredibly risky, but it also proved the killer had an enormous ego. Additionally, most of the items at the crime scenes were smashed to pieces, yet nothing was taken. The killer had even vacuumed the crime scenes, a clear sign he'd spent a long time there. But the most puzzling detail for the agents was the victim's glued open eyes. The act served no purpose for the murder itself. It was purely a way for the killer to vent some twisted emotion. The messy crime scenes, the bizarre postures of the bodies, the overwhelming amount of clues, they left Gideon completely stumped. But one thing he knew for sure, if they didn't catch the killer soon, more tragedies like this would follow. Just as expected, a new attack happened nearby shortly after. A 60-year-old woman was assaulted in her home. Luckily, her husband came back just in time and scared the attacker away. Police rushed to the scene to photograph evidence. Elsa, an expert in sexual assault cases, was extremely attuned to female victims' reactions. She noticed the elderly woman seemed reluctant to talk in front of the male officers, so she offered to take her somewhere quiet to chat. The woman gradually calmed down and revealed the attacker had worn a ski mask and that he was a black man. When Elsa returned to the police station, Reed had already pieced together the full text of the ballad. But what confused everyone was, the killer had only used parts of the poem, and he hadn't started leaving the messages until the 4th murder. If this was all part of a premeditated plan, why didn't he begin leaving the verses from the very first crime? A thought popped into Gideon's head. He asked when the media had first reported on the Tommy Killer. The answer confirmed his suspicion. News coverage hadn't started until after the 4th murder. This meant the killer's real reason for leaving the messages was to grab the police's attention, because before those reports, the police hadn't even realized they were dealing with a serial killer. After compiling all the clues, the BAU released a profile of the killer. The Tommy Killer came fully prepared for each crime. Electrical wire, tape, and glue were his must-have tools, yet no trace of their use was ever found at the scenes. Clearly, he was an organized, meticulous criminal, the type who typically worked in a technical field. The murder sites were miles apart from each other, indicating the killer had used a car. Coupled with the fact that all crimes occurred during the day, it suggested he was probably committing murders while he was supposed to be at work. This meant his vehicle was either a company car or a truck. He'd stalk his victims in advance, learning their daily routines. To ensure he had plenty of time to commit the crime, he destroyed expensive belongings in the victims' homes and left verses tied to social class, classic signs of a deep-seated hatred for the wealthy, proving he himself came from a lower socioeconomic background. Prying the victim's eyes open, along with the aggressive tone of the verses, showed he relished being in complete control. This reflected a severe psychological void in other areas of his life, a desperate craving to be noticed. Gideon emphasized one final point. The Tommy Killer was white. The black man who'd attacked the elderly woman was not the Tommy Killer at all, because the Tommy Killer was far too meticulous in his planning to ever take the risk of attacking when the victim's husband might come home. Besides, his goal was to kill. There was no need for him to hide his identity behind a ski mask. Elsa added a crucial detail next. The black attacker was likely young, given the victim was nearly 60 years old. Past case data showed that the older the victim, the younger the attacker usually was. Additionally, the elderly woman mentioned a young man had been delivering groceries to her house regularly. His age and physical description matched the attacker perfectly. That grocery delivery boy was the real perpetrator of that assault. Identifying the black criminal should have been a win, but instead, it left the police captain more discouraged than ever. He'd originally thought they'd caught the Tommy killer, but now the lead had gone cold, and the entire investigation had to start from scratch. That's when someone proposed a plan: leak a story to the media, claiming the black man was the Tommy killer. If the real Tommy killer was as desperate for attention as they thought, this news would definitely provoke him. Sure enough, the very next day after the story broke, the police received a call from him. Tommy screamed and ranted into the phone, calling the cops idiots, claiming he'd never stoop to making such a stupid mistake. He even bragged that he'd strike again the next day, just to make sure the police would never forget him. But to everyone's surprise, even though the call lasted long enough, the intelligence unit couldn't trace the signal's origin. It was clear the Tommy killer had come prepared this time. The captain judged grimly. This might be the hardest criminal to catch in a decade. The entire BAU was forced to mobilize, working around the clock to track him down. Gideon Saturday in the car, replaying every detail of the crime scenes in his mind. What exactly had those forced open eyes witnessed? Just then, a bird perched on a telephone wire caught his eye. Gideon casually explained to Elsa a little bit about bird behavior. The brightly colored ones are the males, because male birds have to go out of their way to prove they exist, to win the female's attention. In that split second, it all clicked for Gideon. He rushed straight to one of the crime scenes, laid down exactly where the victim had been, and tried to see what she'd seen. Staring out at the telephone pole outside the window, Gideon knew beyond a shadow of a doubt Tommy was a telephone lineman. It was a job that kept him up on telephone poles all day long. He positioned the victim's body facing the window, so she'd be staring right at where he worked. The tape and wire he carried with him were standard tools for his trade, and the untraceable phone call, that was just his area of expertise. They immediately notified the intelligence unit to cross-reference all telephone linemen fitting the profile, and to search the area for any phone company service vehicles. The lead was spot on. Tommy's real name was uncovered in no time. Company records showed he'd specifically requested to be assigned to this neighborhood for maintenance work that very day. Gideon and Elsa raced to the maintenance site, and sure enough, they spotted a phone company service truck parked in front of a house. This meant Tommy had already begun his next attack. Gideon approached the house slowly and faintly heard a child crying. Inside, the child's mother was about to become his next victim. He pushed the door open. Tommy was there, holding a gun to the hostage's head. But at that moment, Gideon had him completely figured out. He told Tommy if he pulled the trigger, he'd just be arrested as a run-of-the-mill criminal. And when that happened, Gideon would tell the media the police had only caught a petty thief. No one would ever know he was the infamous Tommy killer. Before long, everyone would forget he'd ever existed. The homeowner was terrified, unable to believe the cop was actually provoking the killer like this. But as it turned out, the plan worked like a charm. The one thing Tommy couldn't stand was being ignored. Gideon moved closer, urging him to drop the gun. If he surrendered now, the name Tommy Killer would be splashed across every newspaper and TV screen. Everyone would know who he was. The whole world would remember him. It was like a sales pitch, and Tommy ate it right up. He asked Gideon over and over again if this was really going to happen. Once he got Gideon's solemn promise, he dropped the gun without hesitation and gave himself up without a fight. Gideon had talked down one of the most feared serial killers in recent memory with nothing but words. Sometimes, the right words are more powerful than a bullet, and a precise criminal profile is the sharpest weapon against a killer. But the police station barely had time to celebrate when another horrific case landed on their desks out of nowhere. When officers arrived at the scene, they found Adam's body. His skull had been crushed by a heavy blow, The person who'd reported the crime, Jenny, had claimed she was there when it happened, but now she was nowhere to be found. To make things even stranger, under a tree near the crime scene, they discovered a dried, skeletal corpse. Like Adam, the skeleton skull showed signs of blunt force trauma. The detective in charge of the case, John, immediately reported the situation to his superiors and requested 100 additional officers for backup, all because of the bizarre symbols carved into the tree, symbols that suggested this might be a ritualistic killing with religious undertones. What's more, Adam was a minor celebrity at his school, a star player on the football team. News of his murder would hit the headlines in no time. Panic swept through the local community, and the BAU was called in to assist with the investigation. Reed examined the shape and size of the skeleton's pelvis and determined it belonged to a male. Traces of candle wax were also found on the bones, leading him to suspect they were left during some kind of ceremony. This was clearly a premeditated murder, but compared to the decomposed skeleton, Adam's death looked like a spontaneous attack. The murder weapon was just a rock. What's more, while the trail where Adam was found was remote, Gideon saw a steady stream of foot traffic, hardly an ideal location for a secret ritual. The BAU deduced the decomposed body must have been moved to the site after the ceremony was performed elsewhere. Gideon asked Detective John if there were any secret societies or reclusive oddballs living in the area. John told him the townsfolk were all devout Christians who attended church services and Bible studies every Wednesday. They weren't some mysterious cult. The people in this small town just wanted to live quiet, peaceful lives. From what the police knew, no one was into forming gangs or cliques. Gideon noticed that among the red symbols carved into the tree, the letters Lord stood out the most, but he couldn't figure out what the word meant in this context. Just then, Jenny's mother arrived at the scene, sobbing uncontrollably. She told the police her daughter had gone missing ever since the murder, and there had been no word from her since. This led everyone to a disturbing conclusion. There might be more than one killer, because whoever did this had to be strong enough to overpower Adam and able to abduct Jenny as well. What's more, the killer was likely a local resident. The town's roads were a confusing maze of twists and turns. Anyone who wasn't from around here would get lost after walking just a few hundred meters. So Gideon came up with an efficient way to identify the suspect. Have the police round up all the local residents and organize a search party in Jenny's name under the guise of helping look for the girl. They could observe everyone's behavior closely. Based on past cases, killers could never resist the chance to be close to the investigation. Detective John asked the local church pastor for help, and the townsfolk were gathered in no time. John's son, Junior, even brought a bunch of his classmates from school. The searchers were split into small teams, each led by police officers, and sent off in different directions. The BAU agents blended in with the groups, watching everyone's reactions carefully. Meanwhile, the intelligence unit ran background checks on all participants, cross-referencing their behaviors with their histories. The search turned up several unsavory characters, a pastor involved in financial crimes, and a few long-time tax evaders and scam artists, but not a single person linked to a cult was found. Fortunately, a new clue emerged on another front. While searching a narrow path, Elsa found a blood-stained note, along with a small scrap of fabric from a piece of clothing. The note read, "The devil demands a boy and a girl for sacrifice on the night of the full moon." And the full moon was that very day. Maybe the boy and girl in the note were Adam and Jenny, but in all the BAU's case files, there was no record of human sacrifice rituals, only a handful of cases involving animal sacrifices, and all such rituals shared one common trait. The members followed a leader who claimed to possess supernatural powers. This leader was usually eccentric and socially awkward, someone who made people feel uneasy and distant. He was typically a young male, between his teens and early 20s. He listened to heavy metal music and dressed in flashy, unconventional clothes to set himself apart from his followers. He often had bad habits, and most importantly, he was definitely a local. Detective John racked his brain, but he couldn't think of anyone who fit this description. He'd lived in the town for years and had never met anyone like that. But just then, his son Junior spoke up. He knew someone who fit the bill perfectly, a guy in his early 20s who'd gathered a group of high school boys around him. They did drugs and listened to heavy metal together and called themselves the Lords of Destruction. Reed connected the dots instantly. The word Lord in the tree symbols was short for Lords of Destruction. John was shocked. He couldn't believe his own son knew people like that. Junior looked embarrassed as he admitted he'd hung out with the group once, drinking beer with them. Those guys talked about the devil non-stop, using the address Junior provided. The police rushed to the group's hideout. Before they left, Gideon noticed a girl in the search party who seemed to have something to say, but was holding back. The police found the Lords of Destruction hideout quickly. The group's leader was a man named Rhodes, and his outlandish, bizarre style fit the BAU's profile perfectly. But when the agents interrogated him, Rhodes flatly denied any involvement in the murders. He said Adam and Jenny weren't pure enough to be sacrificial victims. He also claimed he had his own definition of the devil. To him, the devil was anyone who rebelled against hypocritical rules. Adults were all just phony believers, saying one thing and doing another. His group, he insisted, was just a bunch of rebellious kids. Rhodes acted arrogant and unrepentant, but when Elsa showed him photos of the crime scene, the cocky look vanished from his face immediately. He scrambled to explain that while they drank and listened to music, they never hurt anyone. He swore he'd never seen the symbols carved into the tree before. John obviously didn't buy his story and was about to press him further, but Gideon stopped him because Gideon had talked to the quiet girl from the search party and realized they'd been looking in the wrong direction from the very start. The girl told him the decomposed body found with Adam wasn't a murder victim at all. The man had been a traveler who died a year earlier, falling off a guardrail on the mountain and hitting his head on a rock. The girl had kept it a secret because she was scared, and the few classmates who knew about it had stayed silent too. It had been their little secret. But now, desperate to find Jenny, she decided to come forward with the truth. Adam's murder had nothing to do with the skeleton. This wasn't a cult-related serial killing net. Adam had been the killer's target from the very beginning. Meanwhile, Reed had searched every inch of the Lords of Destruction hideout, but there was no sign of Jenny. Just then, Junior showed up at the hideout, demanding they keep searching for Jenny. He also let slip that Rhodes had another secret hideout on a nearby mountain top. Reed and Morgan immediately followed Junior up the mountain. Sure enough, they found an old, dilapidated cabin at the summit, and the same bizarre symbol was painted on the door. Jenny was inside the cabin, but she was already dead. Morgan stepped outside to call the other agents, only to find his phone had no signal. At the same time, Gideon told Detective John what the girl had revealed. The symbols on the tree near the skeleton, he'd explained, had only been carved recently. The killer had put them there to mislead the police, making them think the murder was cult-related. Killers like this were always incredibly arrogant. They often found ways to insert themselves into the investigation, deliberately steering the police toward the wrong suspect. Gideon pointed out to John, think about who led everyone to the Lords of Destruction hideout. That person is your killer. When John heard this, his face turned white as a sheet. Gideon was clearly talking about his son, Junior. John couldn't accept it, refusing to believe his own boy could be a murderer. That was until his subordinate burst in with an urgent report. Someone had broken into the room where the police kept their guns, and Junior had just left the station, saying he was going to find Morgan and Reed. This wasn't a coincidence. On the mountain, Morgan had figured out the truth. As soon as he saw Jenny's body, they'd been played from start to finish. The clues at the crime scene had made it look like the killer was disorganized and reckless, but nothing could have been further from the truth. The killer was not only highly intelligent, had also infiltrated the investigation as part of his premeditated plan. By then, Junior had realized he was under suspicion. He pulled out the stolen gun and held Reed at gunpoint. His motive spilled out in a frantic, emotional rant. He'd been consumed by jealousy of Adam, who seemed to have everything. Adam was handsome, got good grades, and was the star of the football team. He was even dating Jenny, the head cheerleader. To Junior, Adam had stolen the life that should have been his. Junior ordered Morgan to drop his weapon. Reed, though physically weak, was sharp as a tack. He knew Junior was obsessed with Nietzsche's writings, so he deliberately baited him using Nietzsche's philosophy. Taking advantage of Junior's momentary distraction, Morgan lunged forward, knocking both Junior and Reed to the ground. In that end, the killer was arrested without further incident, and the heart-stopping manhunt finally came to a close.